Hello. Welcome to the Exatos.
And I think that's probably the ultimate solution to the whole Palestine-Israel conflict in a nutshell. So what do you guys think?
It might just be crazy enough to pull it off, you know?
Well, only with your support. So go ahead and send those donations. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. So, we've been going for about 2 hours now. Does anyone feel like you got to take a break? Are you ready to just power through this?
Oh, let's go another 2 hours. Screw it.
All right. Well, this is all for you guys. So I had to Google what's happening this week. Apparently, there's like a war in Iran or something, or at least for a couple of weeks now. Are you guys at least up to date on that much?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Who's gonna win? Who's the Polymarket bets on?
Polymarket is all foreign accounts for the most part, so I don't know if that's going to be the best gauge for what's going to happen here, because it could be different incentives, you know, from people who might not have the same, you know, American ambitions, you know, or whatever. So I don't really know.
Well, I don't know about you guys. For the last few elections, I pretty much was ignoring any of the news sites, and I was looking at Vegas odds, because it seems like Vegas odds tend to have better numbers according to like historically versus just various news sites. So, but I wonder now, do Polymarket odds have better stats than Vegas odds, or is Vegas like art?
Vegas odds stay in Vegas, whereas, you know, because they're what happens there. But like Polymarket odds, you know, they're all over the place, I guess. So I don't know
if you know this, but Polymarket has almost like a gold fixing dynamic to it, where the only bets that come up on Polymarket come through the Polymarket team. There's no such thing as like David just goes and adds, you know, some kind of Kubrick Polymarket bet. You can suggest it in the community, and if it bubbles up high enough, then like the fat cats at the top of Polymarket, they're like, okay, we'll make this an actual bet. But they control everything that gets exposed on there.
So Kyle's mom bombing Gaza wasn't something that just like Cartman or whatever just put in there. Like, this is something that it had to bubble up.
I did a little bit of a deep dive on this, and unless they dramatically changed recently, every single bet that comes up on the Polymarket that you can actually bet on, it had to have come from someone within Polymarket. You don't just like Wikipedia yourself into adding it. Like, it might have just gotten viral on their inner forums. I think there's like a Discord channel, but yeah, ultimately anything you see on there. So you can't make whether or not you're going to eat like a ham sandwich today or not, and then have people bet on that, unless there's enough people that like, you know, voice that as a legitimate thing to bet on. So the reason that I even bring it up though, is that it seems that that's where I tend to look at what the actual beliefs of any group of people are. Because if you try to get their opinion, you don't really know where they stand. But if they tell you what they're willing to bet money on, like, now you actually get a direct insight. You don't have to like mess around with semantics or anything.
Right. It's still a problem of access to information and what we're going on and the assumptions that we hold. So like right now, apparently, there was missiles fired. I'm sorry, it's early for me again. Missiles fired from Iran that landed 4,000 kilometers away. Well, we were told for like the last couple of years and even recently that their missiles couldn't reach beyond 2,000 miles. So if you're looking at a range of and this is something that they can argue false flag or whatever they want to argue, but the fact is that all these countries have radar, including Qatar. So if that were the case, that would probably come out, right? So it looks as though these missiles were fired from Iran, and the how far they can get, it looks like Paris, it looks like potentially London, where depending on exactly where the launch site was, but major capitals of European countries are currently under threat from Iran, and we were told this whole time that wasn't even a possibility, that it couldn't get half as close, and so that's pretty big.
I wonder if Iran were to actually attack, say, like Montmartre, would that be considered attack on Africa?
That's a question. I mean, the whole idea was that this was preemptive attack. The rationalization was that if they were attacked by anybody, that they had basically a setup that they would just go off and attack all these surrounding places, which is kind of what we're literally seeing. So it's hard to know from one side because there's a slippery slope fallacy. A slippery slope fallacy may or may not be true, or it's like a slippery slope fallacy in the sense that you're projecting what's going to happen if this happens, and people can debate on it all day. And then when the thing actually takes place, then we get to work with that. It kind of relates to that quote attributed to Schopenhauer of the 3 stages of truth. First they laugh at it, then they violently oppose it, and then they accept it as self-evident. So right now, what stage are we at? You know what I mean?
I feel like I'm stuck in phase 1 where I just laugh at everything.
That's healthy. That's good.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I got friends that just are done with watching the news and they're living their lives, and it's like, I'm always reminded of that Sean Ono Lennon tweet where he had the monk on top of the mountain and he said somebody needs to tell this guy that silence is violence. Like if you're sitting watching a stream of water at peace, you're probably doing more good for the world than somebody arguing with some dipshit on Twitter, probably. I don't know.
I wanted to ask Anna too, where do you think Iran should strike first?
I actually...
You mean 10th? What are you saying?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Well, next, where if you had a wish list of like where Iran could shoot within 2,000 miles, where do you think that they should shoot?
I don't think they should shoot.
I don't know if they realize that that's one of the options. I don't know if that is.
No, I don't think they see that as an option, really.
I think it's really weird. Like that's where my parents met, was Iran, so that's like where I come from. But yeah, I think a lot about this, that like the Iran, like in terms of running from whatever it is that we're running from as a collective, facing our shadows.
Running up that hill.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I always thought of Iran like that was the CIA's name for it. Like,
no, that was George W.'s name for it. This is an ongoing joke, is that George W. pronounced Iraq. He pronounced Iran, Iran, and he would actually flip back and forth every so often. So for a long time, he just pronounced it those ways, and then somebody was like, "Mr. President, it's actually," and then he was like, he started to like reluctantly like adjust. But all of us people that grew up with George W. saying that over and over again are kind of inundated with like, this is how it is. But the spelling is the spelling, and so phonetically you could say one thing, but as far as the wordsmithing goes, I think it's fair to say Iran. I ran all the way home just to say I'm sorry. Yeah.
I've been wanting to do another deep dive on Operation Ajax, because a while ago there was right when I first started doing comics, it was like 2012, maybe like a little bit before then, and it was like 2006 is when I first started working on it. 2012 is like 6 years after I figured it out, but during that time there was this interactive comic company that kind of came and went, and I think that they're coming back out with their original book again. It was called Operation Ajax, and it was like a fully interactive motion comic that had audio, and like you had to have to like touch the guy's drink to like drop poison in it and stuff. It was kind of cool, but it kind of like led you directly through the entire Operation Ajax plot, which was, if I can oversimplify it just for my own sake and maybe yours, and maybe get a lot of it wrong, but it was that Iran was incredibly like progressive already. It was not like a regime where people were wearing hijabs and everything. This is in the pre-70s, and they had all this oil, and I guess the Western, mostly the Brits, had the oil refineries, but they didn't necessarily have claim over the oil, but they were the only ones that knew how to operate the refineries. And we basically end up putting someone into power that is more cohesive to just like letting us also control the oil. And then that goes sideways, and they kick all of the Americans out at a certain point, and then they're stuck with all of the natural resources that they have, but they have nobody that knows how to actually operate the refineries at that point.
The problem of seize the means of production, right?
And they completely, and everything goes to shit, right? Like they don't maintain, they don't know how to like control any of this. So now, even though they've got the resources, they don't have any way to convert it into money, and they can't really step up onto the stage, which maybe the argument is that part of Operation Ajax was to like let them find their way into their own demise and then just create chaos instead of some kind of like a cohesive state that might have developed like a self-identity at some point.
Right. Well, destabilization, right? I mean, that was the Confessions of an Economic Hitman. That's largely what he's arguing, is that this is the template, this is the formula, this is what we repeat. And so when you're looking at somebody like Dave Smith or something, like he's going to react to everything that happens through the lens of that kind of, you know, those ideas. And so I don't necessarily know to what degree. Like, I know that there's always going to be perverse incentive from governments. If there's a happy result that happens in the midst of that, like, because that's what we're seeing in Venezuela, right? Is like, and that relates directly to Iran also, because we attacked their port for oil, which would go to Iran before going to China. So they actually would be the same ships. And so, but the weird thing is that Iran has been isolating itself more and more and more before any of this happened, like increasingly. And so when we did that with Venezuela, that was like, we completely isolated Iran already more than it had been. And that's what a lot of the protests were about, was because their economy is just completely collapsing. And so, you know, it's not just we have an oppressive regime, there is that. And I've talked to Iranians in person in the past who told me about that, and we're like, you know, this is what we've been dealing with. And they're like, no, if you convert to Islam, you know, you can't leave. So they don't force people to convert to Islam, to the best of my knowledge. But once you're in, you can't. They'll kill you. They'll either kill you or they'll torture you. So once you're in Iran and you identify as Muslim, you're stuck with that. And that's the way a traditional cult works, right? They don't usually, when they're luring people into a cult, they don't say, you have to join this cult. They say, look at how great we are. Don't you want this? And then you join, and then they're like, actually, you know, I guess you do get jumped into gangs, but you get jumped out of a gang too. So this isn't like it's not always just that you can get jumped out. Like you can undergo a lot, but there's all kinds of stuff that I'm kind of shocked that it's not more headline news. I shouldn't be shocked because I know how the media works. But there was that World Cup soccer team who didn't sing the national anthem for the Islamic regime, and then they threatened them. Iran threatened them. They threatened their families. Apparently, they kept members of their family hostage. Apparently, I don't know all the details, but I do know that these women have been in Australia, and they didn't want to have to get forced to get sent back because they will be punished for not singing the national anthem. And so it's kind of crazy that more people aren't aware that for example is going on, you know.
And I think like Chappelle Roan was behind that or something too.
Yeah. You know, I don't actually know much about her. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with her. Do you? Are you familiar with Chappelle Roan?
Apparently, she's like running for some kind of dictatorship in South America right now. That's what I've heard. And like a famous soccer player, it sounded like, you know how Saddam Hussein would torture the soccer players if they didn't, kind of like what you were just describing, if they didn't perform, but also they didn't show like national pride, they would sort of be tortured and humiliated and banned and ostracized.
Right.
And that's what Chappelle Roan is basically doing to soccer players right now in South America. I thought she was just some like pop singer or something. I didn't know that she was also
wow. I feel like right now if we had Andreas here, he would be schooling our asses on something.
He'd be pulling up some cool like images and articles that we don't have the technology to do without him somehow. So if you're wondering why it's a little lackluster, make no mistake, Andreas
he was up all night installing some techie
he was replacing System D with Void, which is like some new Linux operating kernel, or I don't know, he thought it was a flex.
Yeah, but he's tuckered out, you know.
He's tuckered out from installing Linux all night, apparently. So when's the last time you installed Linux all night?
Never.
Do you remember in the 90s, this is off topic, well, I'm taking it back to Iran, but remember when they had that like Sally Field movie, Not Without
My Daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Iran, and Not Without My Daughter. Yeah.
Oh wow, that just unlocked memory for something that I haven't thought of since I think we actually got to see that in school at some point. They made
that's a common one to go to school. Yeah, they want to teach you about that. Yeah, I made a meme of it years back that was Not Without My Blotter. I changed the poster, and I was very proud of it. And no one seemed to get it.
Do you remember a recap? I mean, it was like the daughter got whisked away to I'm going to say Iran because that's what Bush told me it was, and Bush was right about that. So, like, she gets whisked away to Iran, right? And then
in the story, it's based on a true story, by the way.
What's that?
It's based on a true story, by the way.
That's why they were allowed to show it in school, I think.
Yeah, they're educating you on that.
Yeah, and Sally Field was like
flipped. Yeah,
married to an Iranian in America, and they had like a American marriage, but then they got divorced, or he became like increasingly violent with her, and so they got divorced, and then he left, or they went on a trip to visit family, and he took the daughter, and then he kept her there. And like fathers have all the rights in that country, so the government wasn't gonna like force him to take her back. And so then Sally Field had to go undercover, and I watched it, but I was pretty young when I saw it. I don't know. That's like the main memory I have of Iran in my formative years.
You got it, but it's also indicative of at the time that this was a very like Hollywood liberal stance. What it was presenting, what the argument was about, this is, male, dominance in this culture, but it's crazy that now everything has gone such a way that it's actually like, wait, no, we're supposed to be siding with the oppressors because Trump, or I don't understand. Israel, is this? Yeah, it's cool now, or what? Like, it's weird,
What do you mean siding with Iran?
Yeah, with the Islamic regime, so which is opposed to the majority of the Iranian people. And if you're looking at like polls or whatever, that's really difficult to go by, because if you say something wrong, you fear you could be tortured or killed. So like, oh yeah, what do you guys think about this? How do you? Are you being treated well?
My mom,
I cannot sign the papers. And why can't you sign the papers? Because you broke both my hands. They're simply papers saying you have not been mistreated since you've been here. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, but this is maybe kind of racist, but my mom's like warning to me always growing up was like never to date Middle Eastern men, because she had lived in Iran for a couple of years, and like the way that she was like a blonde woman, and the way that they treated her was like so horrific that that was like her motherly advice that she always passed down to me. Like, she didn't give me much, but she always said, don't do.
Well, there's also Sunni and Shia, and you can't, like, what is true for Iran isn't necessarily as true for a lot of the surrounding Muslim countries. So Iran has been more problematic because it actually has Sharia law like in place, and then people have to navigate that in their lives.
You mean like in Minnesota?
If you show your hair in Minnesota, I don't think that they're going to stone you to death. If you accidentally have your hair showing or something.
Honestly, depends on the neighborhood.
Okay, all right.
I mean, my mom lived there before the Islamic Revolution, so they were like still treating her bad before that.
Your mother lived in Iran pre-1979?
Yeah.
That must have been something.
Was she there through it?
I should ask. I should ask while her mind is still working.
Because that would be wild. Like if she actually lived through.
I don't think she lived through it. I don't think she wasn't like, she was a flight attendant for British Air. So she
one of the oppressors. You should have just said that.
Based in Iran. So it was, I don't know that she lived there. I don't think she like stayed for the revolution or anything, but she was there around that time.
Looking down like, ooh, that doesn't look good down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody says, I bet her mom is still smoking, which I believe means smoking hot. I don't know if that's from Florida. I'm not saying it's going to get weird, but
cycle apparently. It sounds like why does it sound like a threat if you're in Florida?
I don't know. It's become a meme. You go by paranoid American. You are in Florida. You are a little bit intimidating. I'm a little bit intimidated, especially when it's just me and you, you know, it's just like, whoa. I mean, look at your lab. You got like just, you know, Tetris strategy just going nonstop for your war games, you know. It's like
I'm also detecting ghosts right now. It might not look like it, but this little guy right here is a ghost detector I've been working on.
Oh, I watched that.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Deal with that. Are you gonna interview people about what's happening? I saw some video that you just shared about that, and it was fascinating.
About what? The ghost detection?
Yeah.
It was. I think I might have shown it off on Secret Society of Good Guys, which you need to come on. Both of you, by the way. I think you've been on it before. Have you, David?
I've been on it once. I'd love to go on it again. Those ladies are fun.
Both invited. Fridays at midnight. If you can stay up, midnight Eastern. So it's not that late. It's like 9 o'clock for you guys.
Yeah, we went like over Tom Hanks's like entire career practically. Like we did like a walkthrough of just like.
I'm tired of carrying weight for Tom Hanks because he doesn't need anyone. But it blows my mind. Anyways, you know, so like if you're familiar with a spirit box, the way that most of them work is that you'll just sit and listen to a bunch. Imagine having like an old school radio. You just sit there and just like rotate the dial slowly, essentially. And the little fragments of noise that you might hear could start to come together and resemble words or phrases. So you almost imagine it like a 1940s version of a Ouija board, right? They went, instead of the ghost moving the little placard around, that they actually start using the radio, and the radio is giving them audible noises to it.
Right. White noise.
The technology hasn't really changed at all. The only advancements that have been in the spirit box world is either to jump around a little bit and like identify when a signal's stronger or weaker. So that's like 70s or 80s. That was pretty easy to do. And then the next one was that in the early 2000s, I want to say, a couple companies came up with a word bank where they just put a bunch of random words: murder, hello, goodbye, you know, who's there, like little phrases, and they just assigned them to different EMF frequencies. So then if you're out in the field and your EMF spikes, meaning like a cell phone walks by, if I put like a magnet next to it, it'll spike, right? That if it spikes, whatever it spikes to, or maybe the delta between where it was at and where like the new reading was at, it'll just translate that as if the ghost knows that you know, that number 23, a spike in 23 means to say hello. And then it would just like grab. It's basically arbitrary, but that's been the only way that spirit boxes have worked. And I don't know. I don't think that I actually even believe that it's accurate. I don't think that ghost boxes or spirit boxes work at all, or Ouija boards work at all. But I know that a lot of people do believe that. So there's plenty of tools that I've made that I wouldn't use them myself. Like the whole time I was at Disney, right? The whole thing is I was making tools for teams of people that worked on stuff that I didn't work on, but I just knew how to make their tools for them. So I would start doing that, and as long as it's successful. So if there's any like ghost hunters out there, like I think I'm making the most advanced spirit box that's ever been created up to this point.
Okay.
But I also don't believe in the technology, but I know that if the technology is real, if the Ghostbusters were real, like I can make the things that they would be using.
So
they're real. They're real, Thomas. Yes.
Just telling you.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm ready to send a prototype out if you wanna experiment with a prototype, because I think I understand how all this stuff is supposed to work, but maybe I just don't live in haunted enough places for it to work.
Have you ever played with a Ouija board?
As a kid, yeah, and I didn't say goodbye, and I broke all the rules and everything. I've walked under ladders. I've broken.
Oh, that
mirrors.
Explains your life and what's happened to you.
Maybe. I mean, maybe. Yeah, I do. I do tend to run into some edge cases, I'll say.
You know,
the movie Poltergeist was based on like one of those like those voice recordings. It was from someone that was recording songbirds, and he started like picking up on voices of the dead, and it became a big like source of study. And then Carl
totally, yeah. Poltergeist takes from various places, including a Twilight Zone called Little Girl Lost, which the title comes from the William Blake poem about the lost little girl, but obviously, but she's with a beast in the Blake poem. So she's with a lion in the imagination. I guess it's supposed to be the imagination of the parents. So their girl runs away, and then they're the parents are worried about where is the little girl, and it's describing her underneath a tree with a lioness. And so like she's vulnerable. And so in Poltergeist, then, just like in the Twilight Zone, there's an entity in there with her. And in Poltergeist, they literally refer to it as the beast. And you have the MGM Lion's roar for over 20 years was a sound effect produced by ILM for Poltergeist for the roar of the beast in the film, which is kind of crazy. And you have trademark and mark.
Let me ask you this one, because I feel like it's somewhat related. So what was the most famous? I can't remember if it was like a Led Zeppelin or Doors or something. But if you played the record in reverse, I think it was Led Zeppelin.
Stairway to Heaven.
It was a Stairway to Heaven, and it was like, everyone worshipped Satan or something. You probably know
something
the
exact. Like that. Yeah, Satan was in
okay, so there's an example that do you like when you hear that backwards? Do you hear him actually saying Satan, sweet Satan, or whatever?
I don't. But one of those examples that I do is 2 minutes and 37 seconds in from the backside of Hotel California. It distinctly sounds like he says John Lennon by himself.
That's the phrase.
It sounds like that to me. Yeah. What's that? I'm sorry.
It's our entire phrase is John Lennon by himself, or it sounds like John Lennon.
Sounds like he's saying John Lennon by himself. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's a little weird, but I can hear it. With Stairway to Heaven, it feels more like a reach, and I've done it. I got techniques out there, but but the big one is Chicago, as pointed out in Little Nicky, with Adam Sandler, that if you play Chicago backwards, you get like the really pronounced one,
Well, and I like Bill Hicks that said that if Satan was really trying to speak through music, wouldn't it be through New Kids on the Block and not through like Led Zeppelin or good music?
Nailed it. Yeah.
So that description though of like you have to really force yourself to hear the message coming through, and that's like a very popular one, right? The Stairway to Heaven one. The people swear it's like this is absolute proof that John Todd was right, and Satan's been using the music industry to like deceive us all. But when you get into spirit boxes, it's kind of that times 100, because now it might not even be a person speaking, it's just like a noise. But if you listen to it with the right ear, I guess,
or with the right psychedelics or something, you're gonna,
I don't know. I don't even know if it's that cool. I think that most of the people are too freaked out to be on psychedelics. I don't know.
When you're falling asleep at night, do you hear voices? Like when you're just about drifting? No. Okay.
No, you're weird.
You? Is that normal?
Yeah, like that's how I know I'm falling asleep, is because I'm hearing these like mundane conversations of other people. And I'm like, oh, okay, I know I'm falling asleep.
Do you have housemates or?
No.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's like wherever, like my whole life.
Oh, fascinating.
I mean, and I'm not going to doubt any of that, because, for example, I know enough people that have described like runner's high to me, right? Or even that describes something called like a 6-minute mile. I don't even know if that exists, but apparently it exists, and people can do that regularly. The same thing for lucid dreaming for like a majority of my life, like decades, where it just sounded like, you mean daydreaming? Are you just kind of like getting really hype about daydreaming? But then like I actually had a legit lucid dream. So I mean, I don't discount that there's people that have some kind of like extra perception that maybe just other people aren't privy to. But when it comes to the spirit boxes, and let's say Ouija board is where it starts off, right? Here's my mundane, normal, non-woo-woo understanding is that the Ouija board requires the ghost to know the alphabet at least, right? And that the ghost somehow is perceiving that it's over this letter and it's over this letter, and then it can spell or misspell, right? If you connect to like an illiterate ghost, maybe it'll misspell a bunch of things, but it's using very loose word of technology to help convey some kind of message. I get that, right? That's the basic premise. So when you escalate that up into, say, like a spirit box, especially because there's more than a few different ways. One of it is that you just tune into some dead station that's not supposed to have any signal, and you just sit there and you listen to it. And if you just hear like a fleeting message, then maybe that's a ghost somehow emitting on that frequency. So I guess that's the most basic version. Does that mean that the ghost knows how to use radio waves and is like like you're talking to only like the tech nerd ghosts of the ghost realm? Like you're never going to talk to some bumpkin grandpa?
I think the idea is that people to simplify it, is that people relate to something like radio waves as that's something that belongs to a more etheric realm, right? Like it's not physical reality, but it's some layer in that. And so this idea of like purgatory, that spirits end up in this other realm, I can see the basic logic of that. At least I would highly recommend Darren Brown's series on debunking a lot of this seance type stuff, because he'll demonstrate it and freak a bunch of people out and get using techniques that had historically been used by these people that would, they'd have these.
Yeah, he had a 4-part series where he comes to the States, and this was on either before or after the Messiah one-off, but he came to the States and he did that where I think he would like get into the spiritualists and the seance people, but I don't know. I think that there's legitimately maybe a way that there's something to all of that. So if there is, then I think the technology is maybe the one place where even if you don't have extrasensory perception, if that radio signal did that thing and it sounded the way that it sound like that someone claimed, to have a recording of it would be paramount to saying like, and look, even if you don't believe me, here's evidence. Here's like
but there's also the origin of television ultimately, because you have the Crookes tube ended up being the precursor to what ultimately became television.
Who was an absolute spiritualist, by the way. I mean, I'm like one of the maybe 100 people on the planet that read his biography, because it was like an expensive ass.
Oh, you read the biography? Was he actually in the Golden Dawn? Like an early member of the Golden Dawn?
So my understanding is that he was a rich guy that had a lot of money and a lot of brains, but maybe not a lot of like street smarts. So he got swindled into a lot of things. That's my impression. So yeah, any sort of joinerism sort of group, he easily would have been in for it, especially if it was occult or spiritualist related.
Well,
but I don't think that he made like significant contributions other than to validate all these things, because it would be, this is the guy that made the Crookes tube, right? Here's the guy that's inventing TV. Of course, anything he validates. I didn't
know that at the time, though. It just looked like kind of like a novelty kind of. It was kind of impressive, but it wasn't like he had moving picture. He just had an image, and the first image to ever be projected through a Crookes tube was, I believe, like a Rosicrucian symbol. Was it the Rosicrucian cross? Like the rosy cross? I can't remember. Yeah.
I don't. You put me on the spot. I don't remember.
It actually may have been a Templar cross or something. But yeah, there was. It was. Point is that it was one esoteric religious symbol that was the first thing to ever be projected into that tube, and his purpose of building this thing was, his intention was to basically have access to the spirit world through this technology, and so that's fascinating to me. That even just like, whatever you think about when you talk about white noise or whatever, it's like this is the origin of what the intention was in the first place that ultimately became this other thing. And so that's why Poltergeist is so freaking crazy, is because how dissimilar is that static from what Crookes was doing with it. You know what I mean? Like,
and not just Crookes, man. This is a consistent theme that you see come up over and over again. Like, I also read the Thomas Watson biography, who was Alexander Graham Bell and Watson, and he said that him and Alexander Graham Bell both were under the belief that when they were inventing their version of the telephone and sending signals, that really what was happening is that a spirit that lived inside of like the electricity was hearing what they wanted to say and mimicking their voice and then carrying it over and then saying it to another person. That they were literally
that not what it is? I thought it was that gremlin from Gremlins 2.
Well, I mean, the point being though is that these are the ones that basically are like the forefathers of a lot of this technology, which may or may not make them experts on it. I would say more than the layman, right? The normal layman, and probably knows a little bit less about telephone, maybe at least the original version. I don't know if you understand.
You know what's messed up about that is that you don't need a telephone in between to make that argument that that's what's happening.
But this is a version of making a strong argument to like a secular world that like, hey, even if you don't believe in spiritualism, which we do, everyone in this room that has invented all this technology, we all believe that these are spirits in the wires. But even if you don't believe that, here's this technology that has a practical use. You don't have to wonder how it works. We're telling you it's spirits, but if you want to come up with a different explanation, that's on you.
You know, that idea that we don't, while we're sleeping, we're not technically, this is supposed, I don't even know if I agree with it, but even Jung entertained this, that we're not actually having those visuals while we're sleeping. That from the moment in which we wake up or start to come out of sleep, that your mind starts to attach all this imagery together to articulate like what your experience was, which is weird because it speaks to time in a weird way too, because sleep is such a experienced as a timeless state, and time is kind of self-interpretive or whatever, like that's why you can slow down time if you're on certain drugs or something. But when you go to sleep, there's that idea that we think when we wake up, we're like, oh, I had some crazy dreams last night. It may be that you didn't really have dreams until the moments before, as you started to wake up, that it's like something about I don't know. That's the weird thing about consciousness. And that was that relates to one of Jung's points in Man and His Symbols, which, by the way, isn't really. He'll say Carl Jung on the cover of the book, but really he only has one chapter in it, and maybe the intro, I forget. But whatever the case, he makes this argument in there that one of his biggest frustrations with even some of his long-term students was that when it comes to the unconscious, they care because of the language and the way that it's treated. They assume that he's speaking to making the unconscious conscious. And he's like, that's not something that can happen. What's happening is, in his view, is that the unconscious is the unconscious. Like, that doesn't change. Like, the shadow just is the shadow. And we talk about bringing light to it. Really what you're doing, in his view, is that you're articulating more and more what it is that is being inferred in the unconscious. So you can have a better understanding, but almost like what you were just saying about the telephone, reinterpreting and then delivering, you would argue that we're doing that within ourselves like all the time. That basically we're forming a replication of what is below the surface. And that replication can be more or less accurate depending on your self-work. So,
Right, but objectively, there's got to be an answer whether or not those are actual spirits, right?
Well,
right. But what is a spirit?
Collective unconscious, though, right? Like the unconscious is a collective thing; it's a shared thing. So it's with other energies or spirits. I just started this dream symbolism book by Manly P. Hall.
Oh, nice! I've read that. Yeah.
Yeah, he talks about how the shadow realm is where we go in our sleep. Like our sleep is a little death, and death is like a long sleep. But that when we're dreaming, it's just we're kind of entering a shadow realm where there's all sorts of other fragmented spirit beings. And we're just picking up on some of their thoughts. Our dreams aren't always our own stuff.
Right. There's that idea, I've seen it from Blavatsky at some point, where she likened so she debunked people. She was kind of not a full-on Darren Brown in her day, but she would scrutinize various mediums, right? So, and she would go to seances and stuff, and then basically just debunk what if she saw a trick. She was very she wanted the real thing. That was her deal, She's show me a real example of this, and she kept on coming across fake examples of it. And so, but she had argued at one point that, like, you know, like if you lived in a house, if somebody lived in a house for years and years and years and years and years, and they had routines, and they walk up the stairs and they walk down the stairs and they go here and they go there, that set up a groove. And so if that person dies because of the nature of the elements, you know, you could say elementals, but even just the elements, that groove is still in place somehow on some level. And so people can enter that home that this person had these repeated patterns again and again, because they're physical matter moving through the house with levels going into the etheric, right? Because we go from etheric to dense in emanation, that they're on some plane, this is still running, like it just keeps going. And so you could call it like a knot or something, you know. It's like, or I don't know if it was her, but I've seen it likened to like if you had a running stream in the wilderness, and you had like avenues on like the sections on the side of the stream that's like where water gets caught and kind of goes in whirls before it gets released again, you know. That she treated it that it was kind of like that, like the elementals are still like off in the offskirts. Now they've got caught in something, you know, or somebody in, you know, because you're a physical entity. Like if you're holding onto a grudge, for example, for years and years and years and years, and then you die and that hasn't been reconciled, it's almost like the same thing that you'd see as like a muscular knot where you have to work it out, that on some other level that's there, and then some other individual could come across it, because like you're talking about Jung with the collective unconscious, it could be collective. So, and it doesn't mean that, you know, just because it's not separate doesn't mean it's not distinct. So like, you know, you can have something that's distinct but not separate. And I think that's something people get hung up on when it comes to like,
I'm hung up on that right now. I don't understand how that could, because I guess I always go to pop culture references. So I go to like Pluribus, where Pluribus is literally the collective, conscious and unconscious, but it's like the collective of everybody.
right.
And then depending on how you need to perceive something, it can be like, oh, well, David needs to talk to, and David needs to talk through RFK Jr. So let's like go through RFK Jr. and talk to him in the coarse voice, and blah, blah, blah. And like, and that's just the way that you need to hear it. And then to you, that's unique and distinct, but really, right, it's limiting itself so that you can perceive it to be limited and distinct, but it's not really the way that you're seeing it.
I actually just had like a long communication with Grok about shame and guilt and the distinction in between, and where it ultimately ended up going. I feel like I kind of stumped Grok, because on this same level, because I was basically talking about how there's no actual point at which one organism ends and another organism begins ultimately. Like if you get into the atoms, and you know, they'll say an electron could be at one point, I mean it's speculative, but it's theorized that an electron could be on one side of the universe and be on the other side a second later. Like we don't really know, but the point is like you're still obviously distinct. Like you can see your boundaries, but that doesn't mean that you're separate. Do you see? Like if you're born from an environment, you're literally extending out of it, right? You're emanating from it, and then when you die, you literally like decompose and collapse back into the thing. It's like I think in the last season, this is so silly, but I think in the last season of White Lotus, they were talking about this as like in the Zen world, or at least in a Buddhist sense, it's like a droplet that gets removed from the ocean and then falls back into it, and you're like, was that thing ever really like? It's distinct, but it's not really separate. I don't know how else to put it, you know. Yeah.
Well, here I got actually I have an analogy with this, but someone had this comment. This is the OG brain stump that I remember coming across like when I was really, really young, and it was because someone was talking about like, what's your earliest memory, right? It's like the exact same question, and how does that work? And some people claim that they've got memories that go back until they were like a baby or like 1 year old.
Yeah, I do. I have a memory of
like,
being in the crib.
What's your earliest memory then?
My earliest memory is that I can remember laying in a crib and seeing the thing that was hanging from above. And I had it verified because I hadn't seen what was hanging above my crib since I was a baby, you know, like it got stored away after I wasn't a baby, you know, like I was the second child, you know.
When we're saying baby, we mean like before you're 12 months old.
I was born deaf, so I didn't hear until after like two years of life.
I feel like but you're like if you're a daredevil baby, that kind of cancels out like any sort of like actual experiment here. Because
well, what I'm just saying is I can remember what do you call it, a mobile? Like I remember the mobile above me laying in a crib, which means that I wasn't, and I can remember the point at which I was able to hear again after the operation. So they widened my canals. My canals were sealed shut in both my ears and with plastic, which eventually dissolved. But and I have a muscular issue in my ear that the noise is like extremely loud. Most people have a clenching thing that happens where you're actually like inside your ear, it like kind of protects the inner ear. I don't have that at all, apparently. So the doctors told my parents when I was a kid that I'd probably go deaf again eventually, but I think the technology is different than it was in 1983. But yeah, anyway,
look at how loose this kid.
What's that?
What's your earliest one from before a year old?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mine. It was a demon.
Oh shit.
Go on.
Go on.
I feel like she already won. She already beat David's story.
I remember that there was like this like being that would be outside. It was like all black with red eyes, and he would stand outside my crib and he would tell me not to cry because he would bite me, but I would cry anyway. And my mom would come in the room, and then when my mom came in the room, it would disappear. But so I wasn't obviously that afraid of it because I was, but
well, no. Why would you be afraid of Captain Howdy in the attic? It seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, it was just like a shit talker though. Like it would just sit outside my crib and talk shit to me, and sometimes it would ride on a rocking horse. But I remembered it my whole childhood. Like my whole family knows that I would talk about the man with red eyes. So
oh my god, no more drop dead Fred. Jesus.
Legitimate question. How was it talking shit to you if you were a baby? Like you wouldn't even know what shit talking was, right? Like you'd still be figuring out.
Babies can't speak, but I think they can understand more than we give them credit for. I think they're like dogs and animals. Like I think we're born like knowing everything, right? Like because we just came from God, like we came from the closest.
That's what Plato would argue is that all knowledge is innate. And that really what we're doing is we're dividing it up. We're compartmentalizing. And then we call that knowledge building, that we're building knowledge. But the knowledge itself is actually just like a knowing. Yeah.
Yeah. So babies like cry when they're born, right? They're like, oh man, it's back on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Damn it.
Well, so for either one of you then, for like that earliest memory, like when you think about it right now, can you still remember it?
Yeah, I also have another memory of when we were camping when I was very young. I think I don't even know if I was 3 yet, but I can remember my mom trying to make sure that I would be quiet because there was a bear that got into our trailer, and we had like a wooden trailer, and it was getting at the food. We were dumb to not have like you could put stuff in a bear box at certain places, but we just had this big trailer and had food in it. And the bear was going at it. But I remember hearing a sound outside, and I remember being in the dark and my mom like telling me to be quiet, like whisper, like she was afraid I would make a sound and the bear would come at the tent. But yeah, very early memory. Yeah.
So what bear?
What's that?
What kind of bear?
Probably the black bear, I imagine. This was I think Yosemite.
Mm-hmm. So when you remember that, are you remembering the original memory, or are you just remembering the last time you remembered it?
I feel like we should nickname you Doubting Thomas. I think
that's taken. I think someone's already got that.
Your name literally means twin, right?
Well, but this isn't like saying that the memory doesn't exist, but I just legitimately I wonder that like if you have a memory that goes back to when you were 3 or 1 or whatever. I think my earliest one might be 3. But I wonder, did I ever really remember it one time, and then the next time that I try to remember it, I was just recalling details from the last time.
What's the difference anyway? Because there's the experience, and then once you've had the experience, you're then creating a replication in the first place. So if you're saying, "Oh, is that a copy of a copy?" Like I don't see the
because there is a difference. Because then you've got degradation, then you've got details lost, details added through that process of constantly pulling up this what you perceive to be the same thing, but if it's the same thing but it just changes 5% each time, then the 20th time that you've pulled it up, it could be 100% different.
But
than
it's still not the
in.
thing in itself. I think that's what Jung was speaking to too, is that the thing in itself was the experience. You, after the fact, you're projecting onto that experience, and as soon as you do that, it's not the thing itself. Like, you ever notice, like, when you have a big insight, it's like you're not actually thinking. If it's a genuine insight, you have an aha moment. You're like, oh. And then immediately your mind comes in and starts articulating all this stuff about it. That's how cults are formed. Often cults often come about from somebody that did in fact have a genuine insight moment, and then ego and all the representation of that thing that was seen, and then they make that, like, a lot of people, if they have a spiritual experience, it could be very genuine, but following that experience, they'll build it up, they'll put it on a pedestal, they'll talk about, oh, I had this experience. And the more that you do that, you're every moment that you're doing that, you're not in that place that you were. Now you're over here trying to make something else out of it and build it into something. That's an argument for Solomon's temple in the first place, that the temple isn't to be built by human hands. It's not a rule like a stop sign. It's a rule like gravity. It's like, that's why you don't do the thing, because you know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Well, the replication of the thing. It's not the thing in itself.
But in Solomon's case, it's funny because usually the implication of like, oh, that's not meant for human hands. In Solomon's case, it was like, all right, well, let's summon some demons to do it for us, and that's how he built it.
It's not only that, yeah, totally. But it's not only that. It's also that you said it won't be built by human hands. It can't be. So what is his workaround? There's so many workarounds. The loopholes, like, and he
literally summons a demon from like the sea in order to pull up the pillars, because men couldn't put the pillars up by themselves.
Well, yeah, also that the pillars themselves, all the materials for that structure in this story or myth or whatever it is, they came from an outside land, and that was his workaround. So he was like, oh, well, they're not from this place, so I guess it's okay then. Like, the whole thing is retarded, basically, in a way, but it had to happen. And the meaning of it is the same meaning carried over, because it's supposed to be a continuation of the fall. So you have two trees and you're told, don't do this. And what are they going to do? It's like, that's just our orientation is towards, if we're told not to do something, we're going to do it. That's why that relates to Freud's idea.
Thank you, Dare.
Right. Oh, totally. I had to take Dare, I think 4 times, because of a glitch in the way that they did it. It's so insane. But yeah.
Well, just the name Dare is, yeah, like they purposely named it that.
Yeah, I dare you. That is totally what it is.
I even thought of it that way.
Oh, absolutely. It's about peer pressure, and like that's kind of the joke of the whole thing. We're going to educate you on all these drugs, and then you're going to know everything about the drugs, and then it's like, I guess there's like an idea of like informed consent when it comes to peer pressure too. So they're going to inform you.
Well,
but then
they could have at least been like, and here's fish scale, and here's something that's called stomped on that has like, you know, vitamin B12 or something, just to like let you know to the grades, like not just here's what a crack pipe looks like, but and like here's the clarity you want to look for. Here's like, oh, there's too many seeds in this weed. That means that it's like Mexican brickweed, and here's what hydroponic is. They should have at least like elevated a little bit more in like the knowledge department.
Are you familiar with totem and taboo as argued by Freud and others? This concept of totem and taboo.
Refresh all of us.
So totem is like, you know, like a totem pole. You know, you have an object, and like this object is what we're all like. That's overt, and everybody sees it. This is the totem, and the taboo is like the shadow of that. It's like what's hidden from that. Like, so if a totem is standing in the sun and the sun hits the totem, there's a shadow. So you'd say, so the way that it works is if you say, so you have something that everybody's relating to that's in the forefront, and then you say, actually, there's another side of this thing, and that is off limits. It's taboo. You're like, there's a feeling that comes with something that's taboo, that it's like, oh, we're not supposed to be going here. But the paradox is that just makes it all the more appealing. So when you set up a totem, you're going to have another flip side to it, and people will tend to gravitate towards that flip side because they're told no. And people are like a child doesn't want to be told no. That's Bereshit. That's what happens in the garden with the tree of knowledge. They're told you can have anything here. You can have all the planets in your around Jupiter you can go to in the whole galaxy, but don't touch Europa. We're going to Europa. Watch us. You know what I mean? So like people do that. That's why if you say that something's off limits, it makes it all the more appealing. And even if it's not really off limits, ultimately people will treat it as though it is, because that makes it more appealing. You understand? So like if people say, "Oh, you're not allowed to talk about this," and then there was like all they want, that's all they want to talk about
that.
Yeah, and then they'll continue to talk about it. And you're like, okay, well, you really not allowed to talk about this, or did they just tell you that? You know?
Well, this is going to get me canceled, but let's go ahead and.
Totem was
sorry.
That was the first name of the 7-Eleven stores. They were ice stores called Totem.
Really?
Yeah.
And they changed it to 7-Eleven?
Yeah.
That's weird. You know, 7-Eleven is the when you look at the pyramids in Egypt, that's the ratio 7-11, right?
Isn't Genesis 7-11 the flood?
Sounds true, probably.
We'll just go with it. Also, here's another fun fact: is that 7-Eleven was George Washington's code name in the Culper Ring, which was the first, like the primordial version of OSS and CIA, was actually run by George Washington. And what they had, one of their original ciphers, it was just every popular, like the top 1,000 popular words of the day. And Washington happened to be one of those, so he was like Agent 7-Eleven.
Oh shit!
Really?
Did you ever notice that in like the traditional 7-Eleven logo that you have a 7 and then they spell out 11, right? And the part that appears in the 7 is Eve. It says EVE in the middle of 11 is actually what's in the 7. So you can make the argument that the curse, right, when they leave the garden, is actually that she has to experience pain when she gives birth and menstruation. And so you could argue that that's a cycle that's connected to the moon. And like there's something weird about, like, because you know the idea of Shabbat is that this is the center, and that it's actually the space. So if you're taking, this is just the traditional way that Jews relate to the Star of David.
No, this isn't going to make us Jewish, right? If you tell us all this.
No, unless if you wanted to convert, and then you'd be welcomed into the community. But the center is empty, right? And a 6-pointed star. And so they relate to that as Shabbat. So like they say that that it's actually spiraling. For Jews, everything's about the spiral. You know what I mean? The seat on the on the cloth. But the point is that they relate to it that these 6 days of the week are actually spiraling around the 7th, which is empty. And it's pointing to something in physics that we know, because it's geometry, simple geometry. From a hexagram you can extrapolate all the Platonic solids. You can't do that with any other basic geometrical figure. It's a perfect vector metric because every line in the figure is the exact same length. It's completely obviously connected to what is popularized as the seed of life and the flower of life, where you have this equilibrium expressed in geometry.
Isn't the dodecahedron one of the Platonic solids? That couldn't be represented in a 6-pointed star, could it?
Check it out. This is my understanding from physics class, is that all the Platonic solids can be basic Platonic solids can be extrapolated from.
Okay, well, I guess a face of a dodecahedron could potentially have the inner shape of the so it's fascinating because this is one of the earliest things we have in Egypt as far as like a geometrical figure. We don't even know how it was impressed into the it's not where does it even come from, right? Because I've heard it called of the Star of David and then the Seal of Solomon, but apparently it predates. That's a hexagram record, or three-dimensionally be a star tetrahedron. But the flower of life is and the seed of life are the ones with the Vesca Pisces lobes, right? That make it up, So like that figure is what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that there was some hexagram that showed up in Egypt. I mean, that showed up all over the world in ancient China, just like the swastika, and on every continent. But because it's a basic geometry, so come on, no one owns geometry. So Pod Prober, it costs too much lately. I'm working on to reduce the cost a little bit. the amount of stuff that we bring up on Synctank specifically, it was like costing like $20-$30 a session. So I'm like,
And
maybe I'll
wasting
bring
a lot
back.
of water too.
Yeah, we we need to like run like a little tip jar to bring Pod Prober up.
Yeah. We're gonna be like, if we keep that up, we're gonna be like the humanitarians in Cuba right now.
I got a bill for like
$400
1 month for just running it on like random shows. Like, okay, it's fun, but it's not $400 a month fun.
I'm sorry, I have to go there. Did you see that Code Pink and Hassan Piker are like in Cuba and they're like through this big party with like kneecap playing and they're just like all raging out, and they took all this electricity to do it. They took generators, and I guess they're potentially part of it was running into the grid, but like through at a certain point in the concert, like electricity went down for almost all of Cuba, like 99% of Cuba. and then they went back to their 5-star hotels, which basically it's technically illegal within the embargo to stay in one of those places because all the money just goes to the government. So we're like trying to do an embargo, and they're like on a humanitarian mission, and they're staying in the hotels that you're not supposed to stay in as an American for that reason. You can be fined. I mean, you can be fined supposedly up to like $30,000 or something for doing that. But I don't know. I'm sorry. I just wanted to go there because it's like it's so over the top. I'm not a fan of Code Pink. I used to be, several years back, but I'm not very impressed by them these days. But anyway, it's such a shit show.
Hey, Kyle, if you want to reach out, just hit me up. contact@paranoidamerican.com. We'll figure out a way to get Pod Prober. I'll throw like a little logo or whatever you want for it. But yeah, if you can just give us tokens. I can spend tokens. What was the NVIDIA guy that was like, if you're not spending $250,000 a year on tokens, then you're fired? Like I could spend $250,000 a year on tokens. I promise you. How many tokens are you guys spending? You don't look like you're spending any tokens. That's, to be frank. Both you too, Anna. You don't look like you're spending any tokens.
What is this?
I don't even know what you guys are talking about.
Doing AI. You use AI.
I like chat, like ChatGPT and Grok.
Yeah, so like in the background, whenever you're talking to it, you're effectively spending what you would call tokens, and depending on what model you're talking to. So if you're talking to ChatGPT, for example, I think that until very recently, they had something like a 200,000 token count. So if you sit there and you have a conversation for 5 minutes with it, you maybe spent 20, 30,000 tokens. And that means that you could have maybe around 5 to 10 long form conversations until it starts to forget the very first things that you originally talked about. And that's called context. So the context is like a certain pool of how many tokens it can remember at any given time. And then once you get beyond that amount, that pool, part of it is that some of them have strategies. So some of them will keep like the first 10 minutes of what you were talking about and then get rid of everything in the middle and then keep the last 10 minutes. And that's how it speeds things up. But that's how it also forgets stuff.
If it wasn't for Andreas having visited Anna Nicole Wordsmith, I wouldn't be like as, confident that Anna Nicole Wordsmith, third person, is not AI.
Why do you say that?
Because she feels like she could be AI. Like her the character that's presented on X, it's just, I don't know. It seems like
that was an AI generated image that I use now. So
yeah, like our show got infiltrated by this AI network, and we're, this is how it's expressing itself. I know that's not true is the whole point, because I know that Andreas met you in person, and it's really hard to fake like an AI in person,
Yeah.
I mean, I had a friend who went crazy, and he just didn't believe that any celebrities were real. He was like, if I haven't seen them in person, they're computer generated.
Yeah, I see people that do that too, and they all think that everybody's like the opposite gender all the time. Like there's
right, that one's another one, exactly. Yeah, and we're always like looking at that, like the pelvic bone, and like being like, see. I'm like, dude, have you guys never had sex? What's going on here? And see that's a fucking pelvic bone. You never felt that? Like, okay, sorry. They're like, they're a dude. Look there's a bump.
I think that's one of my favorite little conspiracy like niche, like bubbles online are the like what do they call them, transvestigators, just because the underlying premise of being a transvestigator is that you're out in public, and I just imagine like you're at the grocery store, and literally every single chick you walk by, every woman you walk by, you're like, I bet she's got a dick. I bet she's got a dick. And all you're thinking about all the time is just dick. Like no matter where
folks that
you're
do
at.
that, if a woman's wearing like, you know, like tight yoga pants or leggings, like it's a dude. Like they look at it, they're like, oh no, that's a dude.
I don't know why I get so like I take it personal because I have broad shoulders for a woman. I have like a low hip to waist ratio. Like I have a very masculine frame, which I guess is like normal for Aquarian, which is a masculine sign. So I guess based on like your zodiac, like you can take on traits of masculine or feminine polarity. But so like I'm like I would for sure like if I was ever famous, they would for sure call me a man. But like I know I'm not a man. And so it pisses me off. And then when I see people always like accusing everybody of being the opposite gender, I just feel like, oh my God, you guys are so stupid. And like, it's not even any of your business. And like, it's such a waste of your energy. And it's such a like misdirection of like the human capacity for thought that it like, I get triggered. And then I think
here's the best part of like, if you get down that ankle, right? All you got to do is shout out Donut. That's the first thing you have to do is always shout out Donut. But all you have to do is accuse the transvestigator of hiding their gender, and you post a picture with the triangle on the face. And I mean, if you just zoom that triangle in or out just enough, you can make it align with any way that you want. And as soon as you get a transvestigation audience starting to transvestigate the transvestigator, it turns into like this what do they call it, like an endless energy loop. Like it just generates free energy for infinity.
Right. And they're going to be super offended too. How dare you?
Yeah,
I'm talking about Jamie Lee Curtis. How dare you bring me into this?
Yeah, this is so ridiculous. And the system knows it pisses me off. That's why I think I keep getting copied on like other people's conversations about it because it knows like it's gonna get like an energetic charge out of me.
It does. It gets to you. It shouldn't. I can understand it getting to you, but it ultimately, you know, people are retarded. You know, that's why that word has made such a big comeback, is because people are going retarded. I think it's an attention span problem. It's like an inability to like recognize nuance, or it's like polarization is such that you just go here and then you go there and then you go there. The trans investigation thing on the level that it goes, like I'm sure that there's people that are, you know,
oh yeah, for sure,
you know, kind of, I'm sure that happens. You know, but at the same time, like that level of like where they're just obsessed with that, like, and everybody's a suspect, like there's something wrong with the processing ability there. Something's happening. It also suggests something about some kind of weird insecurity, maybe in many cases, you know, that the person's experiencing.
I think it's
quite
level
know how to confront.
Because like, so there's one level of it of this person is hiding their gender and they're doing it on purpose to pull one over on you because somehow it perverts society as a whole. And if enough people do this at scale and enough people are convinced that their favorite celebrities and heroes are men when they're really women and women when they're really men, that somehow you've perverted like everyone's impression. You've completely inverted like all of reality. And that's some sort of like ultimate end goal of occultists. But that's just the first step, because then the next one is, and they're eating babies. And then the next step is like, right. And there might be secret Jews. And then the next step is like, there's all these different, like different reasons for purity tests, wherein you can like figure part of these out. And I guess the transvestigation one, it's just the most obvious because it's material, it's objective. It's like, if we could strip you down and force you to show us what we want to see, then we'd have all of our answers. But the second that you ascend from like that physical material form, then it's like, you know, are you a redcoat or are you a revolutionary? Because you can't really like strip someone down in order to see that. So like the transvestigation angle, I think that it represents wanting someone to like show their true colors in a way that in theory they could force you to show them the truth, right?
Right. That's what's happening with Macron's wife, right? That's the accusation there. And like that's the thing is that, I mean, I'm I'm an open-minded person. It could be anything. I think Michelle Obama, I don't know. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If that were true about Michelle Obama, incredible for them to pull that off while everybody's arguing over gay marriage and stuff. If they had a man in the White House as the first lady, I am impressed, you know. And the way I said it before, and I'll say it again, is that would actually trump the Paul is dead thing if it turned out that that Paul had a double and they were able to pull that off or whatever, you know, while making jokes about it on the subliminal. Like, this would outdo that, because that's 4 years of everybody paying attention to something. It's like, oh my God. But I don't think that that's the case personally, you know, but I don't want to rule it out, because I don't want to rule almost anything out, but things get to the point of absurdity and cringe that I just got to be just why obsess on this? It's retarded. Yeah. But, you know, there's masculine looking women out there, man. And every one of them now has to be like questioned like that. Like, you know, trans people used to just not necessarily be called trans people. They were transvestites. And you go into beyond, you know, people.
But I thought that was like a non-passing version. That was like a nice way.
This is the thing, is that people often these days don't know the difference between getting a pass or passing. So, like, if, you know, I kind of like Blair White, you know, like I like a lot of the more old school people who are kind of like, they were experiencing this before the culture war went extra insane, and they would be like, I never had a problem. Like, I'd go into the restroom, I go into the stall, I use it, I go wash my hands, I'm out. Never had an issue. Now they're being scrutinized in a way that they never were before. So they resent the community that they feel. A lot of these folks who like had this experience for years, and now they're like, they feel like they're being scrutinized in a way that they weren't before. They resent the community for being a part of making that happen, because, you know, things have gotten to the level where you have men with beards just being like, let me in, and you say no, and then they like, if you want to see the man show itself, if it's a man identifying as woman, if you want to see that man, just tell him no. You will see it. You'll see the man come out very quickly. Oh, there it is. Sorry, I said no to you. Shit. It's like, sorry.
That was one time.
Speaking
you
of
did that one
like,
time.
Why do you think all the trans stuff is always centered around the bathroom, or at least that's where it started? Like,
yeah, it's sports and the bathroom are the main things that you can point to. That it's like, what rights do these people have that other people don't? It's bathroom and sports mainly. I'm looking for other examples, but that's mainly what I got. And in both cases, like, the history of how women got their own bathrooms, the separating bathrooms by sex, goes back to factories. And once upon a time, there were shared bathrooms in factories where women were working alongside men, and there was all of these incidents of abuse happening in the restrooms. They're like, we need to do something about this.
You mean the women were abusing the men?
No, strike that, reverse it. No, the men were abusing women in the bathrooms. I mean, there may have been some rare example of a woman abusing a man. I'm interested, but no, this is you know, there's differences. I don't know if you noticed, but anyway, so, you know, that, yeah, I don't know. We don't need to. My feeling is that if we're going to stay on the topic of esoteric and occult and whatever, people talk about Baphomet being male and female and all that. Like, my feeling is that, like, there's
also
something
like bathroom.
bathroom. Yeah. Is that we have, like, we're like I was saying before, like, there's no point where people end and other people begin. We are ultimately one. Like, in a way, that's Christianity. Like, what the acknowledgement is and what became communion in the Last Supper is that there's oneness. So you're eating this is my flesh, we're all one, you know. Like, if I'm being sacrificed, we're all being sacrificed because we are one. So you know, and a lot of what sex is like getting as close as we can to the end of duality on a physical level, because, you know, we are polar opposites, male and female, and so to unite on any level is a recognition of the end of duality. That's like part of what that desire is. It's actually a spiritual desire ultimately that expresses itself in the material. And so my feeling is a lot of what's happening is just like an aversion to that end of duality, and it's actually creating another duality in the name of ending duality. And you'll find all these indicators of that if you approach it that way. Like I keep seeing stuff where I'm like, dude, people who will say I'm non-binary, okay, am I non-binary too? Are we all non-binary? Like, what does that mean if you're talking about a polarity? If you're saying that you're a polarity and you have this and you have that, the yin and the yang, the dots here and the dots there, this is in that, and that is in this.
I'm hexadecimal. I don't know about you. I'm hexadecimal at this point.
Right.
Speaking of polarity, like, what do you think about shit being called a number 2?
You got a number 1 and a number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
What do you like in the bathroom?
Right.
But you guys aren't doing number 3s?
Number 3, is that vomit? What is that?
I don't want to describe it now. If apparently it's a personal thing.
I don't know. But somebody in the comments says Hermes. And so I would say, like, even if you're looking at the last arcana of the trump cards with the universe and how it was, for Crowley's universe, it was the world, where you have that character in the middle. It's said that is a, either asexual or hermaphrodite or something. It's the union of the opposites, right? And so, like, it seems like we have a substitute reality that's being pushed where we're trying to, like, basically in the material world give a substitute for what is already true in the spiritual world. That in the spiritual world, we're all one. And when I say spiritual, I just mean etheric. I mean, like, what we came from. Like, this is, what is universal. And so a lot of the things, like ego stuff, is most of it is people taking things that are completely impersonal and treating them as though they're extremely personal. So you'll see lots of examples of where people will feel self-conscious about something that everybody experiences. That was what that report on sex and human behavior or whatever, the Kinsey? Yeah, that report, like, that was the big bombshell of it, was people were like, they thought all these things were specific to them, and then they came to discover, oh, pretty much everybody has this stuff, these hangups that people had. And they're like, oh, this is not exclusive to me. And a lot of that is just a lack of communication. People aren't, and not that they necessarily needed to, but this is the result, right? Is when people don't share intimate things about themselves and they all keep it to themselves, it creates an illusion in society that makes it so that things that are impersonal feel very personal. So you'll tense up on things of being, like, if you're like, something's pointed out about you, you're like, dude, everybody has this. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. My grandma has sexual thoughts? No, I can't.
That was like Dr. Ruth, right?
What's that?
That was like early Dr. Ruth, when like the old lady would come onto the talk shows and would be like, how come this like 67-year-old lady's talking about BJ's right now? I think that was Dr. Ruth.
Oh, no? Right. Word. Yeah, that was Dr. Ruth. People are saying that you're brave in the comments, Anna, by the way.
Me?
Yeah, I think because you just went there with the bathroom thing.
Oh.
Because you're just like, what about a number 2? I think that's what they were referring to.
Okay.
But yeah. But no, it's true. The 1 and the 2. There's a guy with an incredible story who's homeless in my town, and I see him around sometimes. And every time I see him, I go peace, and then he goes peace, and then he goes, makes it 1. I'm like, oh, and then it's like, okay.
I don't get it.
2 become 1. It's 9/11. Come on. One World Trade Center, 2 towers, 1 World Trade Center. Is
that what it is?
No, I mean, that was the symbolism of 9/11.
I have to go do a number 1. I'll be right back.
Okay, so she means it.
I've never actually heard that before. Are you messing around that this becoming 1 was a 9/11 thing?
What I'm saying is that the symbolism of 9/11 was that the 2 towers, as you know, represented Jachin and Boaz, which is both polarity and duality, depending on if you're looking at it through the lens of Gavora or not. If you're looking at the tree through the lens of Gavora and our own judgment, you'll perceive it as duality, which is the klipo.
I feel like you're just playing jazz right now.
No, it's true. I mean, I'm telling you basic esoterica, basic Kabbalah. This is as straightforward Kabbalah as you can get, is what Jachin and Boaz is. So Jachin and Boaz, there's 2 orders to the Sephiroth. There's the replicative order, which is the klipo, which mirror tetragrammaton. Tetragrammaton is the shefa, the emanated flow of the tree itself. That is 1, because literally the thing is spiraling. There's not 2 sides. but we relate to the thing, we project the duality on that polarity by treating it as though there are two pillars. Really, there's only one, and there's not even that ultimately, because everything goes to Ein Sof. But the idea is that what 9/11 was like another version of the temple, Yakin and Boaz, but in this case, it's all directed towards mammon. It is a money temple. It is a trade center, buy and sell without the mark, right? Like you can't. So that is a version of the temple in a degraded form, which is the prophecy that the temple will continue to be built because it'll be more degraded than it was before, because that's the nature of the fall. It comes with the fall, right? And so the destruction of those pillars, those towers, represents the destruction of that replicative order of the duality, and in its place you get a oneness. But like I was saying about what I'm seeing with the culture war and how people are relating to male female stuff, is that you didn't really get oneness. What you got was a destruction of a replication and a replication of the oneness as the one world trade building and the Oculus. That's why they built a giant eye there, and it's a singular eye. Like, isn't that crazy that they built they called it a dove of peace. I think it's the OTO sigil, where you have the dove and the chalice within a Vesca Pisces, is like what Oculus is. So Oculus only opens one time a year at ground zero, and the time frame in which it opens is the same length as 2001: A Space Odyssey. What is it, 142 minutes? It's the length of time between when the first plane struck the first tower and when the last tower fell. That's how long on 9/11 every year they open up the eye of Oculus at ground zero. And so what's crazy too is that it has to start at 846. 846 only equals one word in biblical Hebrew, and the translation is to kill. And so at and this is also why 846 was used for Floyd. So when he died, they said 8 minutes and 46 seconds was how long. It wasn't true, but they said it, and they put it on shirts and bumper stickers and signs and all kinds of things. 846. They did the same thing with 9/11, where they're like 846, never forget. So they did it twice because that's the symbolism. It's to kill. Floyd got killed. The people in the towers got killed. That's the whole thing. So that's insane to me. And it was a fact on 9/11 that first plane hit at 846, and that's when Oculus opens on 9/11 of every year. So, take from it what you will. But yeah, the symbolism of 9/11 is two becoming one, but it's all fake anyway, because it's all a replication, and it's cliphotic as such.
Does this mean that George Floyd was an inside job too?
It means that at the very least that there was opportunism around a subliminal treatment of what happened with Floyd. So even if that was just happenstance and completely random, I think that he knew that the two guys. Well, I know for a fact the two guys knew each other. They worked together for like 10 years. People are like, it's a big place. They didn't even necessarily have to run into each other. I'm like, give me a break. That was personal. I think that was personal. People can think what they want, but that's my opinion.
Well, what happened was that my understanding is that the cop wasn't allowed to be inside the establishment, and George Floyd worked inside the establishment. The cop worked outside, so that if someone was causing problems inside the club, then they would probably encounter George Floyd first. But then if they got kicked out of the club, then you had Chauvin out there to either deal with people getting kicked out as riffraff or to prevent riffraff from getting into the club.
Thank you for the refresher. Yes, and 10 years, they're right there. They never had an exchange.
Well, okay, so here I believe that Chauvin did it for 10 years, but George Floyd had only been at that club for like 8 months or something. But he had been around the area. But I don't think George Floyd
I don't know what I'm talking
Chauvin, I don't think they both worked there for 10 years. I think Chauvin was there for 10 years. George Floyd was there for a much shorter amount of time.
Okay. It's possible I don't know what I'm talking about. That happens sometimes.
It's why we did a deep dive on it for Black History Month on Under the Docks, where we went and watched every all the big George Floyd documentaries.
Yeah, on a symbolic level, immediately where I went is like everyone was chanting. Like I was at a friend's house, and there was like in Santa Cruz, there was like a march for Black Lives Matter right after that happened, and everyone was saying, I can't breathe," which is already referenced with the guy who was selling single cigarettes and then got killed or whatever, like the I can't breathe thing. And people were saying that. And I was just like,
Michael Brown
yeah. And I'm like, Floyd, the dark side of the moon. What's the breathe in the air? Like, I'm just like, really?
Well, and
then the
his
rainbow.
Daughter's middle name is Pink.
What's that?
George Floyd's daughter's middle name is Pink.
Is it really?
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, what is
he named his daughter Pink Floyd? Middle name.
Oh, okay. You had to say that for me to figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, Mythoclass says Haywood Floyd defy Hollywood. It's actually Hollywood, not Hollywood. If you actually look at the anagram. But yeah, you get that right. Haywood Floyd, 2001: A Space Odyssey, because it's the cover story. Haywood Floyd has to present a cover story while he's traveling to Clavius or whatever to give the kid to talk and reveal what we actually know. And so there's symbolism there with, like, you know, it has to do with echoes. Echoes is 23 minutes and 26 seconds long exactly, which is the exact same length as Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite, from the title Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite, and written and directed by Stanley Kubrick. So like Pink Floyd is all wrapped up in 2001: A Space Odyssey, so it makes sense that there's a cover story where we have to project this, you know, but then meanwhile there's a whole other deeper understanding going on in the midst. What do they say? Pretty sure Pink Floyd got its name from Haywood Floyd. That doesn't, no, well, 68. I have difficulty with that. Pink Floyd got its name from two jazz musicians that used to project imagery, supposedly. So when they would play, they would project imagery. And so that's the idea. Pink and Floyd, jazz musicians. But yeah, anyway, I don't know.
Like Fantasia?
Kind of like they would have to do like music, visual accompaniment.
Another one too, we were talking about 9/11 and all the, like, the symbolism, and then Anna had to get up. But one of the other things too, because we were talking about 7-Eleven earlier, and you've got the building 7 and the two buildings, so you've also got like a 7-Eleven on 9/11.
Oh, absolutely. And we got the 217, as Anna has a great Twitter post about that. That's an awesome thread.
Remind me what 217 was.
217, there's a lot of connections to it, but that's just that the order that the towers fell on 9/11 was 217. But there's been a lot of like synchromistic connections to the number 217.
Big time. Yeah. So like the Tower 2, Tower 1, Tower 7, that's the order. And so like 216 is the gematria of Gevora. And 72 is the gematria Chesed, opposite in the two pillars. So the two pillars, as it's expressed in the lower worlds of the Kabbalistic tree, which is what the two towers represented. You have the top. So this relates to Philip Petit having that line too, which is why I was saying last week, I equate him doing that with the golden bough, because by him, it would be the equivalent of him pulling that branch from the sacred grove, right, at Nemi. But that is a pathway in the Kabbalistic tree. If you're going to entertain the idea that the two towers were representative of the two pillars of the temple, which is representative of the Kabbalistic tree of life, that would suggest that this is the two pillars of the lower world. So 72 times 3 is 216. 216 is the gematria of Gevora. So Chesed, Gevora, 72. So it all works that way. But there's crazy aspects to it, because 6 times 6 times 6 is 216. So so the gematria of the Scarlet Woman, as it appears in Greek, because Greek has its gematria too, right? So like technical, true to form Greek gematria, if you add up the description of the Scarlet Woman as it appears in the Book of Revelation, it totals 667. And the argument for that is she rides atop the beast, which is 666, and it's the number of a man because that's its value in the Hebrew for a man. Which is, even though it's in Greek, it's referencing the Hebrew, which is fascinating to me. But anyway, so
her number is 1.
So the idea is that it's this plus 1, which is a traditional Kabbalistic tool where they'll literally say one for the all, and it becomes kind of a joke where it's like, oh, if you're working in gematria, if you're like working with gematria and you're trying to find a connection, and they'll be like, oh, it's one off, it's one short, they'll be like, and one for the all. So like so she's the feminine, so she's the space in which the thing exists. So like it's one, right? Space is one. So it's a communication. So when you say 216 as Gevora is 6 times 6 times 6, this is judgment. It could be, we could get sweet judgments, we could get bitter judgments. We tend to get the bitter because of our orientation, and it comes with the fall. And the Klipo enter through Gevora. And rule through the 12 diagonals. It's complicated. That's Kabbalah though. And so the idea is that when you're looking at 217, you're actually kind of looking at 666 plus 1, which would be the Scarlet Woman. 217 infers a Scarlet Woman. I think that this is what the deal was in Weapons. I think that in the film Weapons, they're literally referencing this notion of what all of that is speaking to.
Well, the kids looked like airplanes, but there was another sync for 9/11 with Michael Jordan, right? He was supposed to be at the World Trade Center on 9/11, and then
Michael Jackson.
Was it? No, but Michael Jordan was one too, because
Michael Jordan and Michael Jackson.
His birthday is 2/17.
Yeah. Interesting. Huh. Yeah, he was such
so
a
what would you make of like Jordan?
They made him into a god. He was a sports god. Like people worshipped him like a god, and like that level is just it's incredible.
Do you think there's any biblical connection to his name? Would the Jordan be where like Jesus was baptized, or like a metaphor for death?
I'm sorry, repeat that. My phone was going, but yeah.
Oh, I was just wondering, like, do you think that like Michael Jordan being a god, like, do you think there's any biblical connection to his name with the river Jordan?
Oh yeah, sure, why not? yeah, Jordan. It's pretty damn significant. But Jordan was a place in Josephus Flavius's book War of the Jews, where a lot of things happened to Jordan, but they pushed the Jews into the water where they drowned. So the Roman army, and it just so happens, if you look at the location, it's not even just that it's Jordan, it's like that specific area is where in the Bible Legion was. He says his name is Legion, free as many, and then Jesus takes the demons out from Legion and he puts them into the pigs, and then the pigs all run directly into the water and drown themselves in the same place that Josephus Flavius said that the Jews drowned. Like, that's pretty bizarre. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I also think that the Jordan represented miracles, right? And that like this next evolution of what humans could potentially do, at least in the physical realm, that were far beyond what anyone thought the limits were. Like literally the Air Jordan was that he somehow knew how to fly, that he knew how to break.
Well, keep in mind too, Michael, Archangel Michael, is the one that leads the souls to heaven. Stairway to heaven, tying it back. But yeah, so you have Michael and you have Jordan, and that's a good point. It never occurred to me that you have two biblical references in his name. You know, and I mean, it's been argued that that sports symbol though for Nike is nothing but a whip in mid-swing, but I don't know.
Well, but Jordan has his own logo because he was, even though they went with Nike, he was untied. Like the Air Jordan would have likely been whoever he ended up going with. He actually didn't even like Nikes. I think he said like they made his like feet bleed or something, that he ended up wearing like Adidas and Reebok on his own time. But also, I always thought this was interesting that when Jordan left and then he came back, he changed his number, right? Went from 23 to I think it was 41. And then he would change it back to 23 again. And then when he left the Bulls for the second time, when he came back to basketball as an owner, it was with the Wizards. And I mean, if we're doing stretches for like sinks, then the Wizards would technically mean he's also a Peter, right? Like, wouldn't Peter be the? Am I mixing that up? That like Peter was the original sorcerer.
This is actually weird. Somebody in the comments says Air Jordan is with Michael Jackson in the song Jam with them in that song with Chris Cross in 1990, Dangerous album. So they're both MJ. Okay. They're both like legendary iconics in their particular field. So like that's just That's trippy. That is trippy. We have to fact check that. I need to know that. I'm really wondering.
Well,
now.
if Air Jordan and Michael Jackson were in the song Jam by Chris
No, that's not. No, I want to fact check that they were both going to be at 9/11 and weren't. They're going to be at Ground Zero on the day of.
I have to do the old-fashioned way and like type it in like a freaking
or type it into AI. I don't fucking like. I'm really curious of that now because I never heard that either of those. So I don't know everything, but that's news to me. So I'm interested to know. Weird. Wasn't there a 217 in the music video for Scream with Janet and Michael performing together in space, where it's like a 2001: A Space Odyssey type thing? I feel like there's a 217. I think so. I'll have to watch that video again. I remember there's a lot of symbolism in that. There's actually, I think that video focuses heavily on Simsum because they have these broken vessels. I think I'll have to check again all this stuff. I'm trying to remember, but I think there might have even been 7 of them where they smashed them all in a row and they got the vessels. So yeah, there's later different school of Kabbalah symbolism in the Scream video. I saw Scream 7 last night, by the way. It was so bad.
I'm halfway through it. Don't spoil it too much for you. Okay, so here. Okay, first of all, here is what are the details surrounding Michael Jackson's supposed Mrs. meeting on World Trade Center. So the rumor was that he had a meeting at the World Trade Center on 9/11, but that he overslept or he had like something else going on where he ended up missing that meeting. That was the Michael Jackson one. Michael Jordan was that Michael Jordan was supposed to announce his return to basketball on 9/11/2001.
Oh, okay.
But that obviously something else happened and it sort of dwarfed.
Wait. The night before 9/11, if I remember correctly, Michael Jackson was on stage for the first time in forever with the Jackson 5 in New York. I think it was at the main I can't think right now. What's the main park in New York City? I'm totally
Central Park.
Central Park. I think it was Central. I think they played in Central Park. Is that correct? I think Michael Jackson played with the Jackson 5 in Central Park on 9/10/2001.
Oh,
and then it was because there
was there.
Because there's so much controversy around Michael Jackson with the accusations, and it was an attempt to do PR, and then all the media went to 9/11, and he thought the next day people would be talking about him, and then nobody was talking about him. I think that's how it went. That feels significant, doesn't it? Like,
what do we're talking about the link between Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, and 9/11.
Yeah.
Keep up, Nicholas. Important stuff, seriously.
Also with Michael Jordan being announcing the Wizards thing, like right before Kobe died, he was making a bunch of children's books about wizards too.
What's that about?
I don't know.
What Kobe Bryant was writing about wizards before his helicopter exploded?
Yeah. He was making children's books about like wizard academies.
Do you remember if you typed in, they changed this, but for a while, and Joe Alexander pointed this out to me, is that if you typed in Kobe into a Hebrew translation and then you translated it back to English in like Google Translate, it would come out COVID. So you type in Kobe, Kobe, it shows you what it is in Hebrew, and then you're like, okay, put this into English, and then it said COVID. And he showed me that in like, I think during the 3 weeks to flatten your face, and I was just like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. But yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. So yeah, it's called the Wiznerd. And this was what Kobe Bryant was working on when he died.
Weird.
So I guess it was basically like I'm going to just assume it was like a hip hop Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
But you can read this. This is available.
Was Michael Jackson in The Wiz or no? Was there who
else?
Was in the
absolutely.
Wiz?
And he
Michael
was
Jackson
a scarecrow.
was in The Wiz. So there's another wizard connection. Okay.
Yeah. Also, like his first scene in The Wiz, he's just like strung up. Like so, Diana Ross was like practically more of a mother than his mother. Like she's the most parental figure in his life. So she's kind of like, she helped him repeatedly. So even while they were filming The Wiz, he was being tortured by the Jackson 4, right? So they were giving him shit all the time, but it's in the movie. Like what is happening in real life is happening in the movie, and it's really weird because they're playing like crows, the Jackson 4 crows, and Michael Jackson is the no-brain scarecrow on a cross. On a weird cross, like that has like circles on it too. It looks like it's some like astrology tool or something, but he's like all hung up there, and they're just making fun of him and like dancing around him and be like, ha ha ha, because he can't stop the crows from eating the crops. So like it's like this weird, like we're just overtly making fun of stupid Michael in The Wiz. It's kind of surprising. Like, I don't know. I mean, I haven't watched The Wiz in a while without Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road over it, which is amazing, by the way. But yeah, it's a strange one.
Do you think 9/11 happened in the Harry Potter universe?
Why would it not? I don't understand. I didn't even know Harry Potter universe, like what that I feel like Tucker Carlson. What does that even mean? What does that even? What do you?
So the Harry Potter universe is that there's the mundane world that we all share, reality, and then he gets to kind of sidestep that when he goes to Hogwarts, right? He goes through like the magical train station, whatever.
But does it take place nowadays, or did it take place in like the 50s?
It took place in the 1990s, but it would go to say that if the Harry Potter universe has continued to exist throughout 9/11, whether or not the events of 9/11 happened in the mundane version of the Harry Potter universe.
Oh God, Donnie, why you got to be so smart all the time? I'm sorry, I'm referencing Donnie Darko when he's talking about the Smurfs. Never mind.
That's not true. Does America exist in Harry Potter? I don't know. I don't think America does exist in Harry Potter. And speaking of transvestigators, right? Isn't that now like one of the world's leading transvestigators is now the creator of Harry Potter?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
JK Rowling.
JK Rowling is not a transvestigator, dog. What are you talking about? Where did you get that?
But she's like a trans what would you say? Like she's an anti-trans activist in a way.
Not even that. She's very specific. She's like, this is all the things that is fine with me. Express yourself. I'm okay with. And here's where it crosses a line with women specifically.
Yeah. I mean, but she's known in the collective as being like an outspoken against like the trans stuff.
Right. But she's seen as some kind of like mega villain when she's just like being super fucking reasonable. Like that's what I feel.
Like but my point is that it's like alchemical, right? Like because the male female, like the rebus that's created with the union of opposites, and
for sure.
She also has like that's what Harry Potter was about, was the Philosopher's Stone, and she has that like soul that how do you say it? The coagula.
Yeah,
you on her arm. So like
absolutely.
For her to be like
separate,
the center,
coagulate, reunite. You are so on point with that. That is very true.
Yeah,
that is very true because she is into studying to some basic degree basic occultism, right? Because it's all through Harry Potter. In fact, the first thing that happens in the first Harry Potter is about his scar, which is the 777 lightning flash that is connected to lightning. It's like the symbol for the thing, and it came from lightning. And the first bit of magic that ever happens is he communicates with a snake, which is the opposite side of the lightning flash. Lightning in this direction, serpent in this direction. So like that's like the whole thing. And you're absolutely right. She has the alchemical formula tattooed on her, which is the two becoming one. This stuff that I was going off about earlier in the show that might sound weird to people that may not be familiar with that kind of basic occultism that we're kind of sublimating away. Like we can't, it's an aversion tactic. Instead of acknowledging unity as it exists, we're trying to like manifest it in the material world in a way that's like, dude, this is not like, yeah, that's weird. It's like trying to create another order. So of course JK Rowling's hip to that. Of course she is. And that would actually explain a lot.
And I think someone who, like, I forget exactly, but there was someone named JK who was like the translator for the original alchemical text. I did a post about it. I can't remember everything
For
within her fictional world, or like the actual world, she had someone help work on alchemical texts.
No. Damn it, where is it? Let me just grab the book. Let me just grab it off my shelf so that
that's
I can.
the way to do it.
Yeah.
Yep. JK, just kidding. Yeah, I don't know. I'll always jump to the defense of JK Rowling because I have. It's one of those things that people will point out. They're like, "Well, can you show me specifically?"
Okay.
Where
Splendor Solis is like a alchemical book, and the
Aren't you afraid to have that in your house? Isn't that the kind of book that can like attract demons?
No, you think of a grimoire. Is that a magical book?
And then this is JK. Can you see that?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
There's a JK.
Oh, do it again. Do it again.
Yeah, do it again.
Do it again.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. You don't hate that.
Well,
can you see?
Well, we're doing it for the book.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. No, we can actually see it now. Okay.
Dig it.
Up. Okay. But what was the quote in the book about? Like, what was the book reference? That there was some sort of alchemical translation?
It's like an alchemical like instructional book.
Cool. By JK Rowling?
No, it's just like a sync that she happens to have the same name.
Okay. Sorry, I was totally missing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was trying to find it. Damn it.
Well, what about alchemy? Is alchemy real?
Okay, here's the post I made about it. Legendary alchemist and possessor of the Philosopher's Stone, Solomon Trismenon was the teacher of Paracelsus. He learned through Kabbalistic Egyptian magic books. His best-known alchemical work is Splendor Solis, was translated by an anonymous JK.
Translated by an anonymous JK.
Yeah. So that's all I have to say.
From what? From Greek? That was supposed to have been in the Library of Alexandria, which was burnt down, or what's happening?
I don't fucking know. I don't know.
Okay. Because that was the thing with like the Emerald Tablet. They said that it came from the Library of Alexandria. We have this Greek translation or whatever. And then they found out, I think that's from like the 16th century or something like that. Or maybe even later. I can't remember where the controversy brought it to. But yeah. 1582. This version is from, yeah. That makes sense.
Allegedly the teacher of Paracelsus.
Right. That's how it goes. But, good luck
trying to means his name actually means better than Celsus. That's his name.
Well,
Celsus was the name of another guy, and he literally just named himself better than the other guy.
We wouldn't actually probably have the Fama and the Confessio at this point, which is the basis of Rosicrucianism, if it wasn't for years and years and years of people thinking that this was actually like a real map to the gravesite of Christian Rosencrantz, a obviously symbolic fictional character, but they thought because it described the gold and the riches that were there with him, it was believed like almost like a treasure map kind of deal. It's loaded with gematria codes and stuff, the way that it's written in Greek gematria. There's an amazing book by Paul Foster Case called The True and Invisible Rosicrucian Order that makes this argument, but you can see in the Fama and the Confessio, those two manuscripts, that they probably wouldn't have survived if it wasn't for the hope that there was actually real gold involved here. Like people thought that they would find this site and get the gold, whereas it's all allegorical for consciousness, which is when you were asking a second ago, Thomas, if like alchemy is real or if alchemy exists, like turning lead or base metals into gold. There are ways that you can achieve certain things. It requires a lot of extra chemical and work and whatever, but the whole thing is ultimately an allegory anyway about consciousness. I don't think it's really, I don't know. What do you think?
Maybe. I mean, man, I'm blanking on his name. Israel something
Israel
or other.
Regarde?
Yeah, Israel Regarde. He claimed in one of his books or I believe it was a book by someone that worked under Israel Regardie, but that it was legit, that there's an allegorical explanation for it, and that all of that is true. But in the as above, so below aspect of things, that if it's true philosophically, then there is a version in the mundane physical world where it's also materially true in order for this other non-material version to be true. But that there was like this little asterisk, and the asterisk was that you can have the right ingredients, the right process, everything can be exactly as it needs to be, but that if you weren't pure of heart, that the recipe wouldn't work for you. And it's like the biggest freaking, like, what is this crap? You know, like, how do you quantify the pure of heart aspect? And it's that you can only transmute base metals into gold if you're doing it for a pure of heart reason. So if you're doing it to just make money or doing it just for the novelty of it, then you can't actually do it.
I'll tell you what, dude. I have some problems with Israel Regardie. I have some problems with Mathers. I have some problems with these people, but they're not the same problems that I have with Crowley. I have problems with Crowley too, but it's different. Because like there'll be times where I'm like my favorite book by Crowley is Magic Without Tears, right? Edited by Israel Regardie. I wonder, anytime it says that he edited a book, you know, I question that how accurate this is to what Crowley actually had. Like, you know, I don't really know. I don't trust him totally. You know what I mean? Like, I don't trust any of these guys ultimately because they're kind of tricky. But yeah, I don't know. I trust Paul Foster Case and Manly Palmer Hall more than I would Israel Regardie, Eliphas Levi, Aleister Crowley. You know, like, but I don't know.
I think
pure of heart, really, like for alchemy. Okay, dude.
Maybe it's like a vibrational thing.
Well, there's chemical processes that they've done. Like, I don't ultimately know the validity of this, but I've had people swear up and down that they were able to do a little alchemy and it worked, like physical alchemy to turn lead into some degree of gold. And but they're like, it's not as impressive as you think. Like, they're like, everything that was involved in that was like took them years, and it was like barely any payoff, you know. So I don't really know, but maybe, you know, on a bigger scale, maybe that's totally happening. Maybe people are just turning base metal into gold, and that's why they don't want to show us what's actually in Fort Knox at this point. Because it's not that it's gone, it's just that they've been producing it from, you know, they've been doing what they did in the Holy Mountain and just taking little excrement, tying back to your number 2 question, and turning that into gold through an alchemical process. You are excrement, but I can make you gold. You know, I don't know.
I got another tie here too with the Rosicrucians, and we were talking about earlier about language. We were saying like everyone's born with all knowledge, and it's just a matter of like compartmentalizing and filtering it all out. This is a claim that was made in a really weird documentary series. The first one was called "The Secret Destiny of America," which is based on the Manly Palmer Hall book. This is like a 3-hour documentary on that, and they also they get. Have you ever seen this, by the way?
Is it a woman speaking throughout it?
No. So it's okay. So this is actually, I hope that you go and watch this if you're into this topic.
I may have seen it, but go on. Yeah.
It's a 3-hour documentary, part of a 3-part series, which overall is like 10 hours long. The first one's called Secret Destiny of America. The second one's called Riddles in Stone, and it's specifically about like the masonry and the layout of the streets of Washington, D.C. and all this. But the very first one, it goes all the way into Manly Palmer Hall's claims, and then specifically it cites that it makes a lot of claims about Francis Bacon. The main one was that Francis Bacon was William Shakespeare, and that there's all these coded examples of this.
It's a chapter in the Secret Teachings of All Ages. Yeah. You know
well, and he's not even the one that came up with that. That actually came up with by a relative of Bacon in, I think, like the 1850s.
Right, but I think he says that in the chapter.
yeah. In the 1850s. Yeah, Manly Palmer Hall was like great at like compiling. He was kind of like a Ripley's, believe it or not, but like for the occult. So she writes this thing about how Francis Bacon was really William Shakespeare. But anyways, the other thing that they claim in this I thought was really fascinating was that Francis Bacon had actually his own printing press that would like no one had like owned one of these at a point, but that he had his own printing press and that he had secretly published over 2,000 of the classics that like had never been translated into the English language before, and that when Francis Bacon was born to the time when he died, the actual nature of the English language had completely transformed into being like a whole bunch of different pockets of different dialects that weren't really cohesive into a singular cohesive language that also ends up having over 2,000 of the classics all put out in mass so that like just normal people could afford them and read them for the first time in history. And that this was like his main Rosicrucian undertaking, but that his trajectory was like a direct result of influencing John Dee, and then John Dee and Edward Kelly, and then Edward Kelly gets into like Crowley, and then like so essentially this long line that goes from Francis Bacon as the head of the Rosicrucians and the head of Freemasonry. So he's in control of all of the worlds of occultism, all the worlds of like education, essentially, right? Like, might as well be the head of like the Jesuits and the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons, and he sets the rest of this in course indefinitely, and then it all gets traced back to this one guy, Francis Bacon.
I don't rule it out. I've never ruled out after reading that from The Secret Teachings of All Ages. And what's cool is like if you get that book, you know, like if it's not the reader's edition, if you got the real one, it's got the little see-through flap that you can go over his face and like go back and it's like kind of silly. But you know, I've always entertained that. But that's taken quite a bit of a step further. That postulation, I don't know, but I can definitely go there and entertain it. I don't know. I need more.
Of what that he was secretly releasing 2,000 classics.
You're saying that this is in that documentary series?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so that book, The Secret Destiny of America, I think the main thesis of it, the main argument of it, and most of the things that add to that are legit, but he has some tangent type stuff that I really question. Some kind of idealism around the Mayans and idealism in certain things like, it's a little iffy. But the main idea I can get behind. So maybe it's something similar with the Francis Bacon thing. I don't know the full extent of that, but I can definitely entertain the basic premise of it. Yeah.
Have you ever heard this, Anna, that Shakespeare was a fraud, that he didn't even know how to write his own name?
I didn't hear that.
If you look up, I mean, maybe I can pull them up. I don't have the technology. But one of the things that people like to say are just look at how William Shakespeare signed his own name and imagine if he could have written these detailed manuscripts that have been put forth as like, you know, the greatest innovations in the English language since forever. And that the premise is that Francis Bacon just paid some random guy off, some random actor, and was like, hey, we're going to use your likeness and your name in order to put these works out into the world, and we need like an actual person to kind of represent them, and that he just happened to be like the person that got picked.
It's kind of like Quiz Show where you know, they didn't want to have like just the weird looking guy who wasn't camera friendly to be like the winner of the show, so they have somebody who's really good looking but he's not necessarily as knowledgeable, and they're like, oh, you're our guy. So it's like he was a good front person to play that part. But you know, I don't know. But the problem with that whole idea is that if you look at the writings of Francis Bacon, they don't really resonate with what you see from Shakespeare. So I think that's one of the stronger arguments against it.
All I know about Shakespeare is that like my mom took me to England when I was like 14. Her boyfriend had like won a trip on a radio show, and so he took us to England, and we were going to go look at Shakespeare's house, but I got in a fight with my mom and my brother, and I sat in the car. And so everybody else in my family went to Shakespeare's house, but I sat in the car.
You ruined it. You ruined the vacation.
Yeah.
I know he did they say he did a lot of opium. They found opium on his property, right?
And claims of marijuana too, that they found like an old tin that had a pipe in it, and that they found cannabinoids inside of the pipe.
I mean, Shakespeare plays are like the stoniest thing ever. So
in case you're wondering when you're looking at these scribbles, these are apparently the Shakespeare's signature. So this was the level that he was
The
known
level.
to actually be able to write at. So imagine all of his manuscripts written in roughly this manner.
Well, this is also a signature. I mean, my signature, not everybody can read, you know?
Well,
Like,
don't start implying like, what are you douding, Thomas? I'm the one that's the asshole from here, not you.
this is what I do, man. I ideally want to be as based as I can be. And, you know, I feel like at my best, I'm usually like 85 to 90% there. And, you know, I have to call myself out when I say something that, you know, so I don't know, man. You can't just go by a signature. Look at all the doctors in the world just because they write, you know, actually, no, they're pretty dumb too, but yeah, I don't know.
The other one too, the documentary, at least it points out that I don't know if this is at the Shakespeare house, it might be, but that there's like a statue / placard, like part of the wall that's got Shakespeare kind of like writing on something, and it says something that's like, pay attention to the page, or look at the page. But the actual art of Shakespeare, if you look at the page, it's completely blank, so that it was like some sort of an insider reference to that he never actually wrote anything himself, because all these depictions of him writing things out in the world, all of the pages of him writing, the page itself is actually blank because he was just a proxy.
Huh. You know, there's a Shakespeare Santa Cruz place. It's one of the biggest archives and collections of Shakespeare related stuff that exists, but probably the biggest in America. But I frame stuff for them sometimes, and I stretch canvases for them that they sell at the place. And they were like not doing well. Like a few years ago, like they were like they're in the middle of nowhere. Like that. They're like almost directly across the street from, I don't know if you heard about the lithium place that went up. It was the biggest lithium facility in the world, like blew up and burned for days and days and days. We had an order here. I'm 14 miles from there. So we had an order for me not to leave the house or open the windows. We're supposed to close all the windows. It's like impossible to live that way. So like, I don't know what the hell. But anyway, right there where that place happens to be, there is also like one of the biggest storehouses of Shakespeare everything. This guy's like a big space. You walk around, it's pretty impressive. But he was like going under, and a fucking billionaire just like found out about him, who was like really into Shakespeare, and just like set him up for good, that he doesn't have to ever worry again about his place like having problems. It's pretty nice.
So there is money in English degrees, it sounds like, after all.
Yeah.
Maybe if you find the right
Although I
billionaire.
think that this guy actually went to a Sri Aurobindo school or something like that. No, it wasn't Sri Aurobindo. It was the Beatles guru. It was a school from Maharishi. It's like, I was like, Maharishi. I was like, where'd you go to school? He's like, Maharishi University. I was like, there's a university. He has a university. Is that
Did you laugh at him like that too?
Is that reputable? But apparently, you know, that's where he went to school. But he's a really cool guy, by the way. I don't mean to make fun of him, but yeah, I will make fun of Maharishi University just because it sounds ridiculous. He's just like this little Indian man trying to look up, you know, Mia Farrow's skirt or whatever. It just cracks me up. Yeah.
One other note on the Shakespeare thing too. This is a great. Also, Globe Theater has all these connotations about being Baconian, because the Globe Theater is a literal memory palace, which I think gets brought up in Frances Yates, who's a woman, not a guy. Everyone always has to point that out. But she mentioned the Globe Theater was like one of the first physical memory palaces, but also that the Shakespeare name in part of Secret Destiny, but also in this documentary, they make a really strong claim that if you look at the placards inside these books, they have this AA symbolism, and that Bacon's trademark was to have an A, a light A, and a shadow A, a white and a black one on all of his books, and that you also find this exact same symbolism in Shakespeare's books, and that the AA stood for Apollo and Athena, meaning the sun and the moon, so it had the light and the dark, but also that Apollo and Athena, specifically Athena, that she had a spear that she would hold, and that she had a helmet that she would wear, and the helmet was representative of hidden information, hidden knowledge, occultism, and that the spear she would shake at you if you were ignorant. It was a way to like condemn you for being ignorant and not for wanting to attain knowledge. So
Eddie Murphy was right in Bowfinger.
You shaking a spear at somebody, and the double A symbolism was that this is a way to break you from your ignorance.
Do you remember in Bowfinger when Eddie Murphy's reacting to the guy bringing up Shakespeare? And
How does it Bowfinger? Okay.
Because he gets super offended, and Eddie Murphy's like, "What are you saying? You calling me?" He said, "You're calling me a spear chucker," because he said Shakespeare, and he's like, "What do you mean by that?" And so you're telling me that that's actually true? That's crazy. And Athena, born out of Zeus's head, like the best of them, she's a significant figure who doesn't get enough recognition.
Someone pulled up a picture of Rasputin recently, and I had never noticed this. He had that big bald patch at the front of the top of his head, and all I could think about was like Athena just like springing forth out of Rasputin's head.
Yeah. Wow. You calling me a spirit chucker? That's what he said in the comments. That's a good movie, by the way. That's one of Eddie Murphy's best roles. Chubby Rain.
Right after meet the Crumps.
Is that the sequel, Nutty Professor?
I think so.
Oh God, no, that's awful.
They just sit around the table and they fart for 2 hours.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm not down. I'm not into it. No thanks.
What do you guys have?
Hercules. Oh, sorry.
What do you guys have going on this week?
Anna?
What do you mean? Like,
what kind of question is that?
This is us wrapping up and doing all the promos. And you have any cool posts or anything?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I've been kind of slacking on my posting duties.
Why? What's going on?
I don't know. I'm pretty busy, and I have those 2 jobs, and like distracted. I'm quite distracted these days.
Well, that's not true. You've got a fire post from today already, where you're talking about how today is 322 Skull and Bones Day, right?
Oh yeah, that was actually that was like I did that.
Oh, that was a year ago. Wow, you haven't done anything for a year. Wow.
So I was consolidating because it is 322. I can't believe we didn't talk about that at all.
Oh, it is.
We are right now.
Yeah, today is Skull and Bones Day, so I was just like, I don't know. I was consolidating them because you know how I like the Good Place because it goes along with my theory that we're already in the underworld. And so there was like 322 demons in the Good Place, and like the train that they had to take to the bad place was train 322. So I was just kind of consolidating that with my March 22nd. Oh, thank you, Donut.
Nice. What is so 9 divided by 11 gives us 0.8181818181818.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. It's hard to, it's like, yeah, that was a while ago. I don't know what my thought process was at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the difficulty with a lot of this stuff is like, I feel like I'm trying to keep like a lot of connections in my head for like books or shows or something for the, like I'm just trying to keep it all in place. And it's difficult sometimes because if you slack on it, it's like, wait, what was that about again? And then if you get really old, like I brought something up to my rabbi like about 8 or 9 months ago from our studies that I felt was significant at the time, and he was old to begin with, and now he's like, he can't remember what the hell I'm talking about. I'm like, dude, I need to like, this is the thing about like the great work, right? Not like the great work, which is the, literally us giving birth to the next species, but like, as far as like what we build is concerned, I need to keep, not just keep track of things, but like every little part of things, it's intense. Yeah.
Well, and you're documenting this through your work at SyncBook and at SyncFlix, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, this is my album film syzygy, but yeah. I have about I think over 200 films on this website.
Why does this say last one is from 2025?
I don't know if that's the actual date. I can put in any date when I put these in, so I don't even know if that was real or not. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. So all of these are free for streaming and download. Apparently, Apple is weird, and so like I don't know about Apple laptops, but I know Apple. You shouldn't be watching this on your cell phone anyway. I'm with David Lynch on that. But apparently, Apple iPhones have a problem with the the streaming, But there's a download option for anybody, you know, if you want to see what one of these is about. I would recommend that if there's a film you're familiar with and you're also familiar with the album, that's probably ideal, because lyrics often play into it quite a bit, you know. But yeah, and then on X, under my highlights, there's ones that aren't on here. There's, you know, different versions of things and all kinds of stuff. But yeah,
One we have to immediately pause, otherwise bad things happen.
That some of them, yeah. Well, I don't think they're bad things, but you know, YouTube is a lot harsher.
Improper things that'll corrupt children is what I meant to say.
Yeah, don't play the one with the green door. That would be, I would advise against that one. But yeah, yeah, it's pretty good.
Well, sweet. I mean, hopefully Andreas is back from his pilgrimage / gender transition surgery by next week. We wish you all the best. We hope things come out right and go in right in whatever way that they're going.
When he said he was a transhumanist, you know, I didn't quite know how far he was going to go with that in terms of
on a long enough timeline. All Mormons become transgender, I think.
Oh, that might be true, actually.